Hello everybody, welcome to the kitchen. Today we're going to be making emergency cake. Emergency cake is one of my family recipes. This is my grandmom Schmel. This is her recipe. It's handed down to me through my father and various uncles. So it's a heavy cake with a neat topping on top, which is kind of crispy after you broil it. Check it out. Okay, we're going to start with 2 sticks of butter. Throw that into our stand mixer, and we're going to cream it. I'm going to use my paddle attachment. Alright, now I'm going to add my eggs one at a time. I have 2 eggs. Let that get incorporated a little bit. Put the other one in there. Use my spatula to kind of sneak the butter down the side of the bowl. Okay, now I'm going to combine together my dry ingredients. I have 3.5 cups of flour, a teaspoon of salt, and 5 teaspoons of baking powder. And that's going to go with my dry ingredients, and that's going to give them a stir. So they're combined. Now, to my egg and butter mixture, I'm going to start to add my sugar. And here I have 2 cups of white sugar. Now we're going to add our dry ingredients. And I'll do this in a couple of additions. I'm going to put about half of it in first. And it also gets a cup of milk. That can go in now. And it gets 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And add in the rest of my flour. Sneak it in there as it's running. And it says to beat this for 5 minutes. I'm going to adjust that down a little bit using a modern stand mixer. I suppose, because this was probably done when Grandma did it with a hand mixer. And the KitchenAid's a lot more effective, and the last thing you want to do to a heavy cake batter, to any cake batter really, is to overbeat it. So I'm going to let that run for 3 minutes additional from now, so maybe about 4 minutes total. Show you what it looks like right now. see it's nice and thick and heavy. So I'm gonna let that beat for a minute. And then we'll transfer it into our baking dishes. For our baking pans, I have regular 9-inch cake pans. This is gonna yield two 9-inch cakes. This will not be a layer cake. Even though it's gonna make two what you would perceive as layers, it's not going to make a layer cake the way after we do the topping process. So I'm going to let this finish and I'll be right back. Alright, our batter is all done. There it is. Resembles a pound cake batter. So we're going to put this evenly into two different pans. As even as we can get it. Alright, so then we're going to spread it through our pan, even as we can. Make sure that's all gets in there. And try and clear any air bubbles. Use the very scientific shimmy, shimmy, thwack method. And we're going to put these into the oven. It takes about 20 to 25 minutes to bake these. And you use the standard toothpick test. So you put a toothpick into the cake, and if it comes out clean, the cake is done. Okay, so now we're going to make the topping for the cake. The cake's in the oven, it's doing its thing. The topping for this is a mixture of butter and brown sugar creamed together with flaked coconut, and we're going to spread that on top of the cake while it's still warm, and then slide it in underneath the broiler until it gets all boobly and crispy. Now the real emergency is if you burn it, because you could set your house on fire. So let's make the topping. Alright, I got my mixer cleaned out, ready to roll again. I'm going to put a stick of butter into it. Grandma loves to cook with butter. Alright, get our beater on there. Cream it up just like we did before. Alright, now to that we're going to add a cup and a half of brown sugar. Now brown sugar, this is dark brown sugar, and it's brown sugar because it still has the molasses in it. The white granulated sugar that you eat at home all the time, that's been stripped of its molasses, and molasses are such a great sweetener, and I use them just in things, but it's absolutely delicious. You can put molasses right on top of pancakes, are delicious. I like to put it in my compound butter with cinnamon sugar. Alright, so now I want to show you what we're going to try to do. First I'm going to quick clear on my beater. and scrape down my sides. Because the next ingredient is somewhere between 6 and 8 tablespoons of milk. This is where cooking skill comes in, and old-fashioned recipes didn't always have exact measurements. So what that means is enough milk to make it get creamy-like. So we're going to add some in. 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, 4, 5 tablespoons, 6 tablespoons. Now, it's always going to be a little bit grainier with brown sugar than it is going to be granulated sugar. Alright, so we got that. And now we're going to add in our coconut. Recipe calls for 1 7-ounce bag of coconut. I found that the bag that I purchased was 14 ounces. So I put in half of it. Now we're going to see how that looks, and that's really what this is right now. Give it a quick mix. It's all together. It smells divine. And it looks kind of about the consistency that I want. It has some texture to it, but you know, it's still melty as well. Okay, so that's the topping. Once the cake comes out of the oven, I'll put it together for you. Okay, we have our cakes out of the oven. The toothpick came out nice, and they were in there for a little bit more than 30 minutes. Took a little bit longer than I expected, but you want to see it start to get a little bit brown around the edges and get a little golden brown on top, because you need the firmness for what we're about to do now. We're going to take our topping. These are still hot out of the oven. We did not let these cool. And this is the fun part. You take your topping, and then using 2 forks works best. Kind of spread it around. Now you want to spread it without ruining the cake underneath, if you can. And before you try to get it too thin, you know, you make sure that you evenly get to both of your layers here. So that's about even there. Now I put the cakes onto cookie sheets because that's going to make it a little easier to handle, because these are next going to go underneath the broiler. We're going to turn on our broiler now. The oven's still hot, so we don't really, it's not like we have to preheat anything. And you put it on cookie sheets because this, you know, could have the tendency to become a bit of a molten mess. Alright, so put a little bit more on that one. A little bit more on this one. You have to work fast because as it sits there, you're melting the butter that you creamed in. And you see, once it hits that hot cake and sits there for a minute, it spreads around a lot nicer. Now, don't spread it all the way to the edge right now, because some of it's going to kind of fall down naturally as it broils. And that's the secret to this cake right here, this wonderful, delicious topping. Alright, now once you have it spread out, you want to have your broiler about 6 inches your rack 6 inches underneath your broiler, and you slide these guys in. And for the love of God, pay close attention to it. Okay, I'm going to do them one at a time, just to be safe. In it goes. Now we literally sit and watch. Okay, it's been about a minute and a half. It's really bubbling hard. At this point, you really have to pay attention. It'll go from 0 to burnt in about 15 seconds. All right, and right there. Nah, maybe a little bit more. All right. Now we're going to carefully take it out. And get started on our other one. Second one's going to go a lot quicker because your broiler is already hot. So this is what the topping looks like when it's done. And as it cools, that's all going to solidify. And you see right, you want to stop. Okay, so here's what it looks like when it's done. And right when you see the little tops of the coconut getting brown, that's your sign when you want to stop. And you let that cool, turn it out, and turn it again onto a plate to enjoy. Don't try to layer it up. This is how you serve it. So there is Grandma Schmel's emergency cake. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy. Please like and subscribe for more great videos.